science is starting to back up ancient practices that are, 10,000 years old. That's what led me to Costa Rica. So I started training people in the same modality where they can learn how to hold this field of Kundalini energy. It's a field. It's like a force field. We're wearing a lot more creams and lighter colors because it helped protect my aura when it became more sensitive. Where am I needed, but also where am I received? It goes together. And so I started feeling like I started co-creating with the universe as opposed to either demanding or begging, depending on the mood.
Jameelah Creates, welcome to the Tapestry podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
I usually love to start off by saying that this is a fashion podcast where my guests and I weave fashion stories, one moment, one thread at a time. Because really, there's just this moment and this breath that sustains us. I know you'd appreciate this. So many of us have a really hard time staying in the moment. We're either worrying about the future that doesn't exist, or we're worrying about the past that is behind us.
Yes.
So as a somatic coach who runs Kundalini Activation workshops in Costa Rica, why do you think so many of us have a hard time staying in the present moment? And how does this physically manifest in our bodies when we deny the present moment?
That's such a great question and so relevant, I think, in today's times where we're really conditioned societally to be disembodied, like out of our bodies, not connected to what's going on inside of us, inside of our wonderful somas. So I feel like what happens when we are out of the present moment is we often dissociate from our bodies. We can't feel them. We don't know what's going on with them. A lot of us walk around like just a head on top of a meat suit, right? Like not really feeling into our bodies. And, historically, especially when we look at our indigenous ancestors, there's a lot of wisdom in the body. There's a lot of intuition and information and connection and emotion. It's how we connect. We connect through our heart center. It's one of the largest electromagnetic fields in our body. So we lose touch with all of that when we are, you said it so well, too much in the future, which again doesn't exist and we can't deal with, and often produces a lot of anxiety and anxious energy and even forward leaning tendencies and being really disengaged from our back body. So often with a lot of people who are very forward, very future oriented, sometimes I'll just remind them, just sit into your back body. What is it just to feel into the back side of your body, the back of your buttocks, your lower back, your back ribs, the back of your neck, back of your heels, just to sit deeper into your body. And that right there, often people might even feel it can create a shift where you just might feel more centered inside of your body. Because again, we live in this culture that's like, and then also you said it so well too, another way we can be trapped out of our present moment is to be caught in the past, which I think can lead to, at its worst, severe depression. It can lead again to dissociation where we're off thinking, um, ruminating over things. And there is some healthy ways we can talk about later of going into the past, but it's often to rewrite it, to bring the tools of today into the past. And you can actually timeline jump. You can actually, for lack of a better word, in a neurological sense, you can time travel and that you can go back to that memory and you can change your relationship to it. You can change your perspective of it. And that can have a ripple effect in real time in your daily life. So that's like the deeper work I do a lot one-on-one and how I train people to, support others with this work. But yeah, just in a nutshell, that's my answer.
Excellent answer. Thank you. And this is where breath comes in and somatic work.
Yeah.
What exactly is somatic work? I've heard it thrown around by different healers, but I've actually never heard a proper definition of what that is.
Sure. I'd love to break it down. So soma is a Greek word. It means your whole body. So not just your physical body, but also your emotional body. You have an etheric body. We have 7 energy bodies, and their soma is all of that. It's your historical trauma. It's your ancestral connection. It's everything that makes you you. And the term is relatively new in the way that we use it today now, but the practices are ancient. It all comes from indigenous wisdom, indigenous and Aboriginal wisdom. So, all of our ancestors, before we had modern medicine, Western allopathic medicine, we had somatics. People used dance therapy. People used song and chanting. People used their bodies, their voices, to move energy, to connect to ourselves, to heal each other. We put energy through our hands. So many practices have people who use touch for healing, and that's a little bit what Kundalini activation is and does. But none of this is new. The ecotherapy, it's be able to sit your back up against a tree, or submerge in water, or put your head under a waterfall, and the way that you feel, even when you forest bathe, when you just walk around with more nature than people and thoughts, the way that your nervous system reacts to that. So it's nervous system training at its most organic in a way, and it's all things that our ancestors used to do, but systematically through, settler colonialism and the colonization of the entire planet. At different times, we all lost touch with that, and we traded our ancestral gifts for a sense of safety, for pills, for more of a structure, and industrial revolution that kind of took us out of nature, which has its ups, but it also has its downs. And I think this period in life, in society, is about us kind of reclaiming some of those older gifts with the benefits of technology and certain things today, and combining them to create what we know now as somatic therapy, which I believe is the science of healing. So somatic
Mm.
therapy is a very broad term. It covers everything from energy work, which is what I do, all the way to things like, EFT tapping is an example of that. That's been known. EMDR, certain types of neuroscience really you are used to heal. Are used things like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's which is more in the head, but people are bringing somatics into it. They're learning that you can't just talk your way out of trauma,
Mm.
especially because a lot of our deepest traumas are pre-verbal. They happen when we are in utero, when we're 1, 2, 3, before we have words. So one of the ways I've heard it explained by one of my mentors that I love the best is you can't talk your way out of a trauma that you didn't have language for at the time. Those centers were not developed. It did not embed its way into your system in that way. So you need to go through the body. So it's a body-based, a body-led healing modality. So there's so many. Breathwork is a somatic practice. Yoga is a somatic practice. There's
Uh,
all kinds. Komi. There's really beautiful practices out there. There's polyvagal theory. If you want to learn more about things, sensory and motor psychology. A lot of psychology is starting to use the body as an entry point, and then using psychology as a way to kind of guide once you're in there. But a lot of times, Freudian, you could talk to your blue in the feet. You can talk for, 8 years, 18 years, 28 years, and not have nary a change in your behavior. You can understand it perfectly. You can articulate it perfectly, what's going on and why you do a certain thing, but you won't necessarily be able to change your choices and have freedom, and in my opinion, unless you go into the body. And so that's what I
mm.
focus on. That's what I love. Yeah.
That makes total sense. Okay, so somatic is an umbrella term and it's breath work, and there's different ways to approach breath work. But you specifically specialize in Kundalini awakening. So,
Mhm.
how does breath and what you do awaken the Kundalini spiral in the body, and what are the side effects?
Sure. Well, first I'll specify it's Kundalini activation. A
Mhm.
Kundalini awakening is a subtle word difference, but it is a huge difference in what it means. Kundalini awakening is not something anyone can give you or sell you. If somebody says that, run in the opposite direction. Kundalini awakening is something that takes several lifetimes, generations even, to achieve. It's when your soul is ready to reach samadhi, to reach a space of deeper enlightenment or just deep awareness. It's a process. It's a very long, beautiful process. And we don't do that, but what we do is an activation, which sort of prepares your body for an awakening. Or if you're in the middle or in the midst of an awakening, anywhere in that journey, it's very soothing and supportive to go into activations that sort of help your body along in that process. But nobody can tell you when. It's just very personal and deep, the actual awakening process. But the activation, what it does is it aligns your body, clears out your channels, where you might have stuck energy, trapped emotion, old stories, things that are not in alignment with your highest, not even want to use highest, your most authentic self. That's really what the awakening, the activation journey is about. It's about reaching your greatest potential. And it's so interesting because even science has a term for it now. So first of all, Kundalini is a term that we use. It's in the way that I was trained, and from in one of the modalities that I studied, Kundalini activation. But the term itself, it's synonymous with life force energy. That's sort of like a more blanket term than Kundalini energy. Kundalini is a very specific lineage and specific framework. But outside of that, you have other things like prana or pranic energy, which is what Reiki uses and breath work uses, which is a part of Kundalini energy, but Kundalini is a bit more than that. You also have Ashe from West Africa. That is the life behind all life. They're talking about life force. Of course, in Chinese medicine, we have the term qi, your life force energy that they move through the body. If you've ever heard of Tai Chi, Qigong, anything with the word qi in it, even Tantra
Yeah.
energy uses life force. So understand that it's older than humanity. So there's no like one lineage or one framework that can totally explain it. It's just that particular style of looking at it. But all of those hands are in the circle pointing to the same thing. And I like to focus on the thing they're all pointing at, which is which science calls the morphogenetic field. Even science is in the mix now, which I find both cute and annoying because I feel like for a long time science used to be contrary to a lot of spiritual beliefs. Like when I was a kid, I felt like it was like science versus like religion, and they didn't go together. And now, especially with the rise of quantum physics and neuroscience and all the things that they're learning, quantum entanglement, all these things, they're starting to see that in somatics, the rise in somatics, they're starting to see that it's starting to agree. Science and spirituality, we're living through a time where they're starting to agree, and their science is starting to back up ancient practices that are, 10,000 years old. And it's really beautiful to see, to be living through this time where it's kind of matching up. But yeah, the morphogenetic field is a measurable force. They can't define what it is, but they can definitely measure that it has an impact on living beings. And they define it as an invisible force that guides things to their highest potential. And they measure it a lot with like plants and animals. And an example I like to give in sessions is that, a seed falls into the earth and there's a force that guides that seed to turn in a certain direction so that the roots grow downward, where it can
Uh,
get sustenance and the nutrients that it needs to take hold and have fulfill its potential, have its life. Versus if it was just random and if it wasn't something behind the scenes sort of orchestrating, then it might grow to the side where it wouldn't get the nutrients, or it would grow up and some animal would come and eat it. And there wouldn't be this kind of abundance of life and this beautiful, how nature kind of just plays jazz, but it all makes sense. That's sort of your life force energy. You have that same guiding force inside of you. The difference between us and all of, nature is that we have this beautiful thing called the neofrontal cortex. I'm going to geek out just momentarily on just a little bit of neurobiology for
me
a second.
too.
But when
Yeah.
you look at a neofrontal cortex, which is where we mostly identify. It's where we get our name, our bank account, what we do, is how we like introduce ourselves. I call it little me sometimes because it's important. Like it's not horrible. It's just that we live in a culture that over identifies with this part of our brain. And when you look at the development of our brainstem, for instance, which is the oldest part of our brain, it connects to our body. It's the most ingrained into our body. That's the difference evolutionary wise from a 98-year-old back here in the brainstem to a 2-year-old of our neofrontal cortex. So this mama jamma just got online and it's great. Like it's the rational and reasoning part of our brain. It likes to compare, it likes to organize and put things in boxes. It's really great at that. And if you're going to do something where you need to have precision or, great, use that part of your brain. If you're going to build a house, yeah, I don't want to use my intuition to feel where the foundation should go. I want to bust out a ruler and measure. And that's a great use of the tool of my neofrontal cortex. But it's not so great to use if you're going to console a child that's scared, or if your friend just lost their parent. It's not a, there's other parts of our nervous system, of our body, that we completely ignore and that we trivialize and almost demonize. in Western culture, where we think if you're, beyond the age of 5 or 6, it's like it's silly or stupid to believe in your intuition. Like we worship intelligence over intuition, activity over rest. We people have competitions of how busy they are, and it's like rest is just as important, if not more, in a way, because, well, it's more now because we live in a society that's neglected it for so long. So it's almost like this yin yang balance, even, is another way to think about it. And what I find is when I do these practices, it restores that yin energy. It restores my intuition. It restores a deeper wisdom inside of me that then my intellect can support. My neofrontal cortex and all of the things I am, and all of that is still with me, but it's not the only driver of the ship. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. So the way I'm understanding it is we go through certain trauma. There's the way the society is set up, the way we function. We've lost touch with our original teachings and intuition and wisdom, the original wisdom. And so now we're living too much in our head, outside of our body, disembodied. And so this work, this breath work, puts us back in touch with our intuition, with our body, with our breath. Now, when we go through trauma,
Mhm.
as we grow up, we put on masks
Mhm.
to cope. How does the work that you do help someone dislodge that mask? And the reason I'm asking is because this is a fashion podcast, and I feel like the authentic self is rooted in
Yes.
self-expression
Yes.
and authenticity. I love this word on this podcast. I love using it. How do we connect to our authenticity and our authentic style and remove the mask that we put on early on as a coping mechanism?
Absolutely. Yes, it's definitely through the body. And breath releases happen in Kundalini activation sessions or life force activations. Um, but it's not the only thing that happens. Breath work is something I'm trained in. And it's a way that the body will naturally kind of go into these breath patterns of, connected breath. People will do that in a session, not even having studied breath work, but their bodies will just lead. Kundalini activation is a step back from every other modality, in my opinion, because it holds within it the potential for every modality, even if you haven't studied it, because it's the body's wisdom. The main difference between Kundalini activation and every other Kundalini practice that I've done is most of those practices, or even breath work, they're will-based practices. So it's the mind telling the body to do something, to hold your arms out for 11 minutes if you've ever done Kundalini yoga, or to breathe in a certain way for a certain amount of time. And then it's almost like the body has to like break down and like, be like give up almost in order for this other thing to step forward. And then this energetic response happens and we have this moment, right? That can even happen in a yoga class. You can be in a yoga class and suddenly hit a warrior two for me is what it will take. It'll just take me and I'll just suddenly be, okay, I'm really here. I'm really present. It's like I'm on, medicine, plant medicine, or, psychedelics, but it's just my own life force energy. That is all within your own capability. So even plant medicine is another great example. A lot of people say that these sessions are a lot like, a ayahuasca journey, that is just not 8 hours and no vomiting. You know what I mean? But it's in an hour. And why that is because all of these different modalities, or even plant medicines, they're either inhibiting or increasing certain chemicals in the brain, but all of those chemicals exist outside of that medicine. And so when you go into these states of complete surrender, which is what Kundalini activation is, you don't do anything, which is such an easy thing to say, but sometimes such a difficult thing to achieve just because we're used to having to work so hard in order to have, desired results, or, we're conditioned to believe that. But this is the opposite. This is literally you just lay there and relax and receive, and music is played. And then the facilitator, myself, I'll go around and just touch certain meridian points, certain energy centers in the body, and then things just start to happen in your body. But it's your own body's intelligent life force guiding it. So that's why it can look like breath work. It can look like spontaneous dance and movement that's coming out of the body without thought, pre-thought. It can look like an emotional catharsis, like you're in an ayahuasca or on a psilocybin journey where suddenly everything is alive and you're feeling your body in a way that you never have. And this is all without the help of anything external. It's not even me. People like to sometimes like put it on the facilitator, like, "Oh, you're so magical. You're so this," and it's like, "Well, yeah, I'm magical, but that was your magic. That was your magical ass self. I was just, the doula. I was just wiping the brow. That was it's yours. And so it can help you in a way like nothing else can because you can't get the doses wrong. It's not about the shaman. It's about your own connection to yourself. And when you get all these other things out of the way, all these thoughts, because the thinking mind can't hang in this state, this state of Kundalini activation. It just can't. It'll try in the beginning. It'll go, "Oh, are you doing this well enough? Are you really surrendering? Oh, my foot's cold." It'll have like its little mental burn off, but eventually it just kind of there's nothing for it to like hold. You're not giving it anything to hold on to. If you don't feed it any story, if you don't put any stories into the session, what'll happen is it'll eventually just sit down and shut up. And then something that's really what it is. And then something much older will just rise forward inside of you and give you exactly the medicine that you need in the way that only you can give it to yourself. And that's what this is. I feel like I just create spaces for people to return to their own natural healing capacity, which again is what we used to do before we were so disconnected from nature and our bodies. So that in and of itself, I hope I answered the question. I don't know if I got there, but I really just
You
wanted to
did.
explain. Yeah. Mhm.
I no, I love that. Just the way you describing it. I'm not even doing the session with you, but just the way you described it, I already felt it. It was
Yes.
beautiful. How did you come across this work and what was your own journey? Were you also disembodied and had to seek out the help of breath work and somatics to tap into your authenticity?
Absolutely. So all of this just started from my own curiosity of wanting to have a healthier life, to be a more loving, connected person. I grew up in the theater as an artist, and I didn't grow up in the theater, but I started training when I was 12, and I had a lot of success right away because I had a lot of intergenerational trauma that I was born with, but I didn't know that's what it was. But as like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I could always connect to like huge emotional, like crying scenes or rage that was beyond my years, truthfully. And people would look at me like, how is this little girl giving these performances, you know what I mean, day in and day out. And I started to realize like this is not mine. And that curiosity just sort of stayed with me through college. And I found yoga, and that was like my first kind of gateway into like, oh, my body can really change the way that I feel. It can change it gave me a outlet for movement. And from there I really found meditation. That's why yoga exists, actually, so we can drop into deeper that's why it was created, so we could drop into deeper meditation. And through meditation, I started finding all sorts of things. I started to really start being led within. Shortly after that, I found breath work and all of these different modalities that came in. I started doing all of these NLP and different like almost neurobiological types of things to help me manifest things that I wanted on the outside, right? Like I was like, oh, I want this, I want that. Let me figure out how to manifest this. And I did, but it was still a little disembodied. It was from a very Western lens. I don't know if many of you have seen that movie, The Secret, or remember that movie, The Secret, that took the world by storm back in the day. But that's a very, for lack of a better term, young, like masculine, but not in the true sense of the word masculine, but in the way that it is in society right now. Um, Patriarchal is might even better word. Capitalistic sort of way of thinking about even what it is that you want, where it's like, I want this, as opposed to when I started studying more of my lineage, and learning more about the Yoruba tradition, which is the oldest spirituality and recorded history so far. It comes from West Africa. They had more of a lunar manifestation technique, which was so fascinating to me because the lunar manifestation was more based on the whole, which is what the feminine kind of does, right? Like we can kind of see the whole picture. Everything is sort of a part of us. And so you don't just say, I want $1 million. It's how can I bring that much value, you know what I mean, to the world, right? And so
Oh.
you think about it from it's like a different perspective that is more of where can I be, where am I needed, but also where am I received? It goes together. And so I started feeling like I started co-creating with the universe as opposed to either demanding or begging, depending on the mood. It was what the other kind of manifestation felt like. And instead, it's like this dance of like, where do you want me to be? Here I am. This is what I have, and this is what you're giving me, and then things just go boop 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 boop, right? And that all started to really deepen with Kundalini activation. That was when I found that. So I just found that because I had been studying Kundalini yoga for about a decade and really loved the energetic response in my body to Kundalini energy. But the Kundalini yoga is very also a lot, even yoga is very like, this and this. It's like, it's very mind over, over body. And, to a point, and then to reach a point where then there's like this, free, it's almost like surfing, this freedom, but it's not innate. Whereas this practice, the Kundalini activation, was the first practice that just sort of skipped all of that. I done plant medicine. I sat with ayahuasca. I sat with psilocybin. I've learned a lot about nature. I learned that nature could soothe me in that way. I learned so much, but when I found this practice, like I mentioned, it's sort of like the roulette of healing modalities, because all you're doing is surrendering and something more, wiser, whether you call that God or your ancestors or angels or even just your good old subconscious mind. Like, we can all agree that there's our subconscious mind, at least, that knows way more than we could ever hold in our conscious mind, right? We have about maybe 10%, and not even, compared to what our subconscious mind actually, what we know. And when we are led from that part of ourselves and we have that guidance and we surrender to it, life just becomes so much easier. I mean, so much more easeful and aligned and full of blessings. And it's like you get out of your own way. That's what this modality gave me. Before, it felt like I was moving forward, but it's like I was tripping over my own 2 feet a lot. Overthinking things and underthinking. Like, this is now it just feels like I'm walking on one of those walkways, when you're in the airport and the walkway is going in the direction you're walking, and then you start walking on it and you feel like you're taking these giant steps. I always love that feeling. And that's what it feels like to be in alignment for me. It's like it's not just me. It's this whole, walkway, and then I'm walking. And that to me is something you can't find just anywhere. How do you find that surrender inside of a system that's built on control? You know, that's what this.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I love how you describe this idea of like, I want this, but
Mhm,
what are you willing to give in return? It's this ebb and flow, the giving and receiving. And you mentioned the masculine and the feminine. I
mhm.
I, I really want to touch upon the duality and non-duality that we kind of touched upon when we were on our phone call. So how does that play into the masculine feminine energies within our own body and within the relationships in our life?
Absolutely. Well, I'll just briefly explain this concept of non-duality, because it's a term. A lot of people call it non-dual states, non-duality states, and it basically, its Latin root means not two. So it's talking about universal oneness. And I always like to think of non-duality as that figure eight, that infinity symbol, or an eight on its side, and how there's that point where everything converges. Everything is at one point, but then it goes away, and then it's two separate things again, or several separate things, and then it comes back to that point. And honestly, quantum physics says the same thing. Like the whole string theory, the multiverse, all of these things now that people are kind of proving in the quantum field, is that there is there is no time, there is no space. It's actually all just right now, and there's different timelines. And people talk about timeline hopping and all of these things, and it is totally possible, but it comes from this space of surrender. So that's where the masculine and feminine kind of comes in, because you have this duality, which is to me almost like the masculine. It's the doing of the world, and we get to do things. We get to be active. But I feel like if it's not informed by the non-duality, by like the ultimate truth, if the feminine isn't guiding, and with that wisdom, then it's almost like the society we have today, where it's like actions for action's sake, which leads to
Yeah.
things like war. I think you can see this also mirrored in the nervous system. We have the autonomic nervous system, which is basically all of the things that happen automatically in our bodies, from our heartbeat to, seeing somebody that we like and we get flush in the face, or, whatever it is. Like, there's so many different ways that the autonomic nervous system serves us, both for survival, but also like for connection, which is like what we're built for. If I could say one thing about the nervous system, is that we are born wired for connection. That's why it's so important to our lives, and why when you start to acknowledge that and work with it, you will just see leaps and bounds of growth. Like, client after client, it's always the case when you start paying attention to what's going on with your nervous system and working with it, as opposed to having it, sabotage potentially whatever you're trying to do with your mind. If your body's not on board, you're not going far. Let's just put it that way, because yeah, it really guides so much of who we are. And when you look at that in that same way of non-duality, yin yang, It's our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest, digest. It's where we downshift, where we actually heal. It's how we actually digest our food, but also our ideas. And like the emotional, we don't just digest food, we digest, interactions, like, oh, that was a big interaction. Let me, some process, And when we go into certain states, like things like anxiety, even depression, um, when we get kicked into things where we're kind of stuck in a sympathetic response, that's the other side of the autonomic nervous system is sympathetic, which is known as, fight, flight, freeze. But when we get trapped in that, we can't process. We don't digest our food as well. It can lead to indigestion, but we also don't digest our lives very well. We don't digest what happens to us. And so trauma just sort of stacks. And then that's when you have people popping off and going all kinds of wild, and not to demonize fight, flight, and freeze, because there's a time to fight and there's a time to fly and there's a time to freeze. And you want to have sympathetic is great. It's what we use when we dance, when we cook a meal, when we want to use our sympathetic nervous system, but we want to do it and when we feel safe in our bodies, not have it kind of, it's almost like a healthy version of all of these things and an unhealthy version of all of these things. Even the parasympathetic can be unhealthy. It can lead to depression when you collapse too much into yourself, right? And then people get stuck and they can't find the joie de vivre. They can't find the fire of life. They're not motivated in their lives. And so either way you go, when there's an imbalance in the nervous system, it can be reflected in that same like non-duality, not, duality. And I also see it as the yin and yang, right? The sun and the moon energy. And so what this work does is it basically goes in, it's a descending energy. So when you're receiving Kundalini activation, it comes in through the crown and it goes all the way down to the root, your lower chakras, the root, sacral, and it will often start sometimes to move up in a two-way circuitry. So you start to just feel energy moving through your body. And it's clearing out nadis, it's clearing out old wounds, it's clearing out trauma. We know from, wonderful books like The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, who's a mentor of mine. I've had a chance to work with him multiple times. And we talk about how it's in our tissues. It's actually in our actual bodies, these memories, especially things that we couldn't process at the time. They go somewhere. They don't just disappear. They go into our bodies. They go into our shoulders. A lot of us hold a lot of, holding the world together, from a young age. We're conditioned to stick all that in our upper backs and our traps. And then we wonder why we can't, like, I got a massage, but it just goes right back. So you got to get to the root issue, or you can get to the root issue. You don't got to do anything. But if you want to see the behavioral changes and the freedom that you get when you actually shift, you get to let that go. And so clients will have, releases, whether it be emotional, sometimes it'll be like shaking not involuntarily, but it's like you allow it to happen, but it starts happening from your body first. Your body wants to finally move it in a way that it didn't feel safe to at that time. And that's how you integrate that yin and the yang. Because some people, they don't move at all. Some people go into a third eye activation and they're like literally having visions of being on Jupiter or seeing their ancestors or getting all these downloads. Like, again, like you're on a medicine journey. The energy is different in each and every person, each and every time they lay down to receive it, because we are different and where you are is different. And it's basically goes in and rearranges. Sometimes it's really your musculature. One of my first sessions I went to, so I was living in Los Angeles. I was working in the entertainment industry and I had all of my whole right side was just jacked up. For like, I had frozen shoulder, I had TMJ on my right side, which is my side from not speaking my truth, essentially. And so when I went into the session and the music started, after a couple of songs, I just started noticing that my shoulder started to just want to do this. It wanted to move on its own. And I just let it. And then my jaw started vibrating faster than I could ever consciously move it. And it was only like a few weeks later, I was getting physical therapy for something else. And they hooked me up to this machine that put electrical currents through my body in this other area. And it started moving at that exact same rate. And I was like, wow, my body was just doing that in the session and the Kundalini activation. Like the body has so much wisdom. And if you leave it the hell alone, it will be like, oh, great. Finally, she shut up. Let's get in here. And then
I
also there's
love
a
it.
spiritual. Yeah, there's a spiritual too, where like I feel like if you believe in that or whatever you want to believe, like where messages and ahas and like clicks can come through and it's not forced. It's like actually, things you need to like can act on in your life. So yeah, it's a very powerful state to access frequently. Mhm.
Wonderful. Well, Los Angeles and Costa Rica are two very different places. So you've been living in Costa Rica for 5 years now. How has your style changed since you moved there?
Oh, so much. Well, it has to do, I mean, it all goes together. So I started the Kundalini Activation while I was in LA, and I started developing a relationship with my internal wisdom, my ancestral wisdom, to the point where I could feel sensations in my body. Like whenever I would look, so it was the pandemic, it was 2020. And I was forcibly moved out of my beautiful home because of toxic mold that we discovered because of being in, the house all the time. So then I was getting sick and we couldn't figure out why. And then we figured out that it was had to do with the what was going on, with the mold. And so then I was kind of forced out of this home. And anytime I went to go look for, because I had been told basically in a vision in a session, like you need to go to Puerto Viejo, not just Costa Rica, a very specific and almost rare place in Costa Rica. I was just getting that message and I was like, okay, I'll do it. But I need to wait like a year to like, save up or to do this or that or sell this or that. And anytime so I was like, let me find a place in the meantime just to stay for this year while I prepare to go. And anytime I would go to the computer to go look for a place, I would get this feeling in my stomach. You know, when you drink like bad milk, like you need like sour milk, that milk that's turned, or you've had some bad like ice cream or something where your body instantly your stomach instantly reacts.
Hmm.
That was the exact feeling I would get every time I would try to look for a place in LA in the interim to to lean. So I had to listen. Years ago, I might not have listened. I might have been like, where is that coming from? Or did I eat something? But I knew now, it's like, oh, my body's talking to me. That's what you develop when you start to surrender, start to let your body lead, is it gets louder. And so then
Yeah, you don't push through it. You're
you don't,
like, I'm facing a block, and you push through it. Instead, you listen to the intuition. I've recently started doing that as well, and it's been a game changer. Yeah,
it's
it's
so important.
beautiful.
And it's
Yeah.
subtle, it's quiet at first because it's used to not being listened to. So you have to kind of develop, it's a relationship. You get to redevelop a relationship with your intuition, with your body, and it's body led. And that's a strong sensation. When I know something's for me, it's almost like it glows. It's not a physical. I don't see, some people are very visual. I don't see things glowing, but it feels like it's glowing. It's like it's like a so I just know, I'm like, ooh, and even if it doesn't make any logical sense. And it took a lot of like just random like curiosity about it to get it going, of just like, huh, okay, you want me to turn down this street? Okay, I'll drive this way. It's just like random, like, is this my intuition? Is this me? It's a lot of people ask me that question. That's a question I get all the time. How can you tell if it's your overthinking mind or your intuition? My general answer to that is that your intuition typically, and most people, it's lower in the body. A lot of our overthinking is up here. We even go like this. We even like raise we get as high as we can, that's typically, and we look off to the side. We don't look up. We look off to the side because we're kind of like reaching for knowledge outside of ourselves. We're trying to figure something out up here. Intuition typically comes from lower, like heart or belly, between heart and root. For most people is where they're going to feel like, ugh, and it just feels like if something clicks for me. It feels like something clicks into place. Like, I'm supposed to do that. And it's such a subtle thing. It's not something I can easily articulate, but it's something that I know I can guide everyone into feeling. I've not met a person yet that hasn't been able to be guided into developing a relationship with their body. And a side effect is developing this relationship with your body's unconsciousness and its communication style. And then you'll learn the way that your body communicates with you, and it can get very loud. And there were times in my life where whatever you could call it, whether it's my body, my subconscious mind, ancestors, angels, whatever you want to call it, there's time where they'll intervene, like when it's life and death. Like I've had moments where I had I'm clairaudience. I was clairaudience when I was a child, meaning I could hear things that other people cannot hear.
Oh.
And had it when I was 3 and 4, and then I got conditioned out of it, and I didn't have it for a long, long time, except for when I was in life-threatening situations. And like I remember being in my 20s and a man not being safe, and I heard a voice literally say, "Get out." Like almost someone right by my ear say, "Get out." And I was like, "Okay." And I listened then. But that's sort of like an extreme. It's nice to be able to develop like a daily, a real conversation where you're actually being led, not just when it's, life and death, but when you're trying to decide what path to take, or what thing to launch next. Like you can start to call upon this energy all the time and really co-create your life with it. And that's what I started. And that's what led me to Costa Rica. And what changed when I moved here was I started to go deeper into this work. I no longer had to spend 2.5 hours every day fighting the energy of Los Angeles in order to drop into myself. I used to wake up in tears every morning when I first moved because the sounds when you move here, it's like birds chirping and monkeys, uh, howling. And there's this beautiful relationship and symbiosis with nature that just doesn't exist anywhere that I've lived in the States. And I've only lived in metropolitan areas in the States. So this was a big shift for me. And suddenly I just had all of this support. So I was able to go a lot deeper into this energy. And so one of the first things that changed style wise was I started to get very allergic to polyester, to synthetic fabrics. And they started to like really irritate my skin. Also, they don't breathe very well in Costa Rica's warmer climate. So that was that too. There's the logistics side of it, but also energetically, I just felt like I had chains on when I had like certain types
Wow.
of fabrics on. Like I was just a little bit, or like somebody was just holding my wings down, just a little less free. And so when I started playing around, I started doing research on it, and I found out that there's all these frequencies with your clothing and how linen is one of the highest frequencies that there is. Like linen actually feeds into you. That's why linen sheets, are so well known and respected throughout time. And so I started leaning into more linen, wearing more linen. I threw away all my polyester things and started wearing organic cotton and linen and hemp. And I noticed a shift. Not only did I have like a kind of it felt more authentic to my being, but I felt vibrationally like I could attract things more, or like I could hear things better, or like I was just more alive. That's what it felt like to wear linen. Then I started getting my sheets linen, and I just started going really hard on the linen, and it did affect my style. I started to wear lighter colors as well. That was something that I guess I was leaning into, but never really had done. I started wearing a lot more creams and lighter colors because it helped protect my aura when it became more sensitive. Because something people don't talk about a lot, there's uncomfortable things that come with the awakening path, the activating path. When you start to become more sensitive, you become more sensitive to your intuition. Yes, that's great, but you also get more sensitive to bullshit. So you can't be in the same place. You can't be around the same toxic people you used to tolerate because you're just like, oh my God, all they do is complain. I hear it now. I can't unhear it. Like
Yeah.
this person is weighing my energy. I feel like I have just been, covered in slime when you leave certain situations or places or things or foods. You can't eat certain foods. I've had clients that, have tried to quit smoking for years and years and years, or trying to stop eating in a certain type of way. And then after just like that one right session, suddenly something shifts and they just don't want to smoke anymore. They don't want to eat that, damaging thing anymore. Not because something outside is saying that it's bad, but because they don't feel like it anymore. Like, that's
Mm.
what's so great about working from the inside out, which is really the way that I work. You can work from the outside in. There's lots of really talented methodologies for that, and I'll go for it. Sometimes you can even do combos, but I like working from this inside place because I just see the results are just so fast. You don't have to, it's not hard. You just shift inside and then it's just so like you don't have to fight yourself. You're working with yourself. Yeah.
Mm. It's like a train being put on the tracks and it just
Yeah.
goes. Like you can't make too much progress movement wise as a train if you're off the tracks.
Exactly.
So you have clients, you work with different people, you're using all this wisdom that you've accumulated over time, all this experience. How do you work with your clients? I know you do retreats. Do you do one-on-one as well?
I do. I do private sessions virtually. This energy works virtually again because of non-duality. There's no time and space isn't real. It's only one moment. So magically, that's the only way I could describe it. It works virtually as well. And so the majority of my clients are virtual, but I also meet a lot of people here because this is where I live in Costa Rica. It's the Caribbean coast. So it's a little different from the rest of what's known as Costa Rica. It has a lot more Jamaican influence. It's a little bit more like raw and rustic and jungly. And the people that come here often come for different healing modalities. They're here because they're really attracted to nature. They don't want to see a Starbucks. You know what I mean? They want to be more, one with things. So when they see something like Kundalini activation, they're curious. And a lot of my long-term clients, I meet them here when they're on vacation, and then they end up doing virtuals later after they have an in-person session. Some people join in person, virtual for the first time, or some people live out here and I work with them all the time. And I offer trainings now. So I started
Mm.
training people in the same modality where they can learn how to hold this field of Kundalini energy. It's a field, it's like a force field. And it allows people around you to drop into the same field that you're able to drop into. So, and that's done over a 6-day period where you are, for lack of a better word, bombarded by the energy. You're just in the field so often. You receive the energy twice a day. Each session's about an hour long. You receive it twice a day for 6 days. And so right around that third day, you have an ego death. That's the only way I could describe it. Almost everybody has it. And you just lose the parts of yourself that just aren't really you. It's a fast track of really finding that authenticity, because the energy just, it can't stay with you when you're with your authentic self. There's no space. You start taking up your real space. And so anything that's not really for you just falls away. It's a really beautiful process. It's also can be physical. You can see that physically. People release all kinds of things physically and ailments in their bodies physically that nothing else worked for, nerve damage, all kinds of things, ticks. But then it also can be emotionally, people who are stuck in grief or stuck in certain areas, or certain, it's like, even like addictions and things like that. They can let go of those things in a session. It just really kind of purifies you to be who you're kind of most authentically aligned with. And then from there, the last 3 days, you're learning how to really hold the field with other people, for other people. So you start practicing on other people that are in the training. And by the 6th day, we bring in a bunch of people who've never received the energy before, who are just coming for a free session. And they receive from all the people that just learned, and they have the most beautiful experiences. And then that person's like, oh my goodness, I can hold this space now. And then they go off on their own and they can start to hold that space for others. And then that's met with a 6-month virtual container where we continue to learn about somatic therapy, which helps integrate everything. So that's why I like the somatic therapy piece. No matter what you're learning or no matter what you do, I feel like learning somatics is very helpful for how to integrate whatever that magic is. So whether you teach, whatever it is, learning about how the nervous system swallows that information and how you can help it along is clutch for no matter what kind of change you're implementing. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. The image that I got in my mind as you were speaking was a bee pollinating a whole bunch of flowers, because that's literally what you're doing. Every time you teach someone to hold the space, that
Mhm.
energetic space, they leave and they affect so many other people with that beautiful energy. So, I love it. I love it. Tell me, when are your workshops coming up, workshops, the
Yeah. So
dates,
the
time?
next training is April 12th. That's a travel day. It's getting you into Costa Rica. And then on the 13th, everyone takes a shuttle together to Puerto Viejo, which is, again, is this much more raw, beautiful, luxurious, but just off the beaten path. It's not over gentrified. It's really maintains a lot of its indigenous roots. And the jungle is so powerful and beautiful and gentle and soft. Like I've never lived anywhere like this or seen nature like this. And it's really held me. And that's why I do the trainings here, because I know how much it holds people. And yeah, that's the 12th to the 18th. You'll check out on the 19th, and it's a really beautiful experience. We're still offering I think we're giving a discount code to everyone who's listening on your
Yes.
podcast, so they can get a nice juicy discount if they want to look into that.
The promo code Jameelah is referring to is Tapestry, and it gets you a 20% discount to join her at the Kundalini Activation Facilitator training, where you will be taught how to create and hold the Kundalini energy field and then share it with others. This is a very special, intimate, life-changing group experience. Commit to your healing and your metamorphosis today. Use the link in the description to sign up. I'll also be there to receive the energy from the practitioners on that last day. And if you're interested in joining me to explore the luscious nature of Costa Rica, swim in the ocean, cook with me, and hit the beach and the waterfalls, apply using the link in the description as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of ecotherapy. So we spend the first 2 hours of every day going to either the waterfall or the sea, the ocean. We go to a big, beautiful grandmother tree one of the days, and we pull upon different somatic and indigenous practices that utilize that life force energy of nature. So the salt water of the sea is very different from the fresh water of a waterfall. very different from a tree energy, but they all have magic. They all have wisdom. And I pull upon my Native American history on my mom's side with Cherokee, especially with the tree and root energy and tree stump energy. There's so much magic in tree stumps. We'll have to get into that. But then also on my father's side, I pull from a lot of the Yoruba, the West African with the salt water and Yamaya energy and just what it is. The salt water is our mother. It's very much mother energy. It's grandmother energy. It's cleansing. It's healing. It also will like smack you on the butt and kind of whip you into shape in the way that a grandmother does. And then the river energy, the waterfall energy, that's goddess energy. That's Oshun, where we get Isis, Hera, Mary, Mother Mary, like all of those archetypes all come from Oshun, and you give thanks to her by bringing honey or gold flowers. And yeah, that energy is very feminine. It's very soothing. It's very nurturing in a different way than the ocean. But we do all those things because then when we lay down and tap into our own life force, we're reminded by our elders, the nature, the elders of the natural world. I feel like the nature energy, the animal energy, those are our big brothers and sisters as human beings. And so when you start to reframe it that way, there's like a power and a backing that you get that you can't get from just human beings, I feel. Because you start to feel like, oh, I'm backed by a waterfall. I'm backed by the mountain. I'm back. The earth is holding me up because she is right now. The earth is holding all of us up. Unless you're floating and, and you're free falling somewhere, you're being held up and supported right now by Mother Earth. It doesn't matter if your real mother doesn't support you or you don't feel like you have support in your life from friends. Like right now, you're being held up by the earth and she's been holding you up, And so just little realizations like that. We do a lot of meditations that prepare us. So when we go into these deep states, they just go so much further. And yeah, people are just changed. They leave and it's just it's miraculous to see the change in people. So yeah, very grateful to hold the space. And yeah, all of it's just from finding my own healing journey. I don't really teach anyone anything. I just remind them of what they already know. That's all that we're all of us doing anyway. And so it's really refreshing to do that. It's very easeful. And yeah, thank you so much for just letting me share about these things. It's so
Of
fun.
course. Oh my gosh, your words were so filled with so much healing power. I just felt it through the
Mhm.
screen. It was a beautiful conversation. And I usually love to close off by saying life is a series of moments that are woven together to create a
Yeah.
rich tapestry. And I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that you took the time today to share your tapestry. It is so vibrant and so nourishing and so just beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're so welcome. Much love. This has been amazing. And I love what you're doing. Thank you for the work that you do. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. I found my purpose through time. I also come from generational trauma, and it has inspired me to go on my own journey of
Mhm.
self-discovery and self-healing. And that's why I love having these conversations to hear how other people have healed and how they're healing the world. And
Mhm.
my perspective is fashion because it is such a surface thing, but when we tap into our authenticity via the way we express ourselves through dress, that's another
Mhm.
little element of healing. Like you said, the
Yeah.
fabric, the colors, the textures, the prints,
Mhm.
they can all make our life a little bit juicier. And so that's just what I'm offering this world, having people tap into their authenticity through how they choose to show up and how they choose to dress.
Love
So
that. That's so true. It's every time we put on clothes, we get to affirm who we are. It's an affirmation. Yeah. That's a
yes,
beautiful way.
a visual and silent but powerful affirmations. That's beautifully said. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Again, thank you for sharing this space and this time with me. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to visit you in
I
Costa Rica,
love
and I'm so
that.
glad that Cordelia Gafar connected us.
Genius.
Yes, she spoke very highly of you and the work that you do, and it is very obvious that you're here to change the world and make it a better place.
Thank you. Likewise. And Cordelia too. She's doing the training in April. So I think between all the things she's doing, it's just going to be such a beautiful thing to witness. So thank you
For
again. I
sure.
appreciate you so much.
Thank you for listening. This episode was brought to you by Jewel Branding Studios, a global provider of style consulting services. At Jewel, we believe crafting a signature look is like crafting a signature scent. It makes you memorable and recognizable. Whether you want to elevate your style for work or for personal reasons, we offer life-changing, long-lasting style transformations grounded in practical advice that leads you on a journey of self-discovery, self-expression, and self-love. Follow me on Substack at Inna Korobkina to gain access to my newsletters and get the latest updates on my speaking appearances and fashion education workshops.